Do I have the best deluxe reverb ever? Who knows? Who cares, really? I'm going to give you a little bit of the story of mine and some sound clips. I'm going to start off with a little bit of blues here, and this is going to be a fairly long video. So I'm going to share a bunch of music. I'm going to play a bunch of stuff with some backing tracks and without backing tracks, a bunch of different guitars, and give you the story of how I got the amp, when I've used it, and what's been done to it, because it's really it's very different than when I got it. But it's pretty awesome, and it's pretty much stock but not original. If you want to support the channel, please look in the video description below. I'm going to have links to some of the resources we talk about here in the video, but we also have affiliate links, some of the stuff that if you want to purchase some of the stuff we talk about, there's links to Amazon. We get a small commission. We also have a store where we've got, you know, all kinds of stuff here. You can get Jack's Guitar Tracks mugs and bottles and all kinds of other junk. And also, please hit like on the video, subscribe, all that happy stuff everyone asks you to do. It just kind of helps us continue to make videos for you. Alright, so I bought this amp in 1993 or 94, I don't remember when. I've actually got a receipt for it somewhere in a box up in the attic, but I really don't feel like looking for it. My very first amp was a crate, little practice amp. I actually had a couple of those. My first real amp was a Marshall Silver Jubilee, one of the anniversary ones. I worked for a year in a pizza place kind of job, and then took all that money, and in 1987, that was just the amp that was available, so I bought one without really realizing what it was. In 1992, I sold it like a moron and bought a Mesa studio preamp and a big rack system because that's what I thought you had to do. And I struggled for a couple years. I had that. I had an 80A MP1. I had a bunch of amps that I never could make sound very good. And then a friend of mine lent me a mid-70s, like a Silverface Super Reverb. And it was the first time I didn't sound like garbage for a couple years. And I realized, hey, you know what? Maybe this is the way for me to go. So after I tried my friend's amp, I bought myself a Silverface Super Reverb. That was pretty cool. And then in short order, I ended up buying a 66 Bassman head and cabinet. I was blackface, a 1964 Vox AC50. It was so loud, it was almost unusable and had to have a master volume put in it. I got this amp, and then I also bought a couple Silvertone 1484s a little bit later on. And I had other amps here and there throughout those years. But I really ended up liking those older, like the 60s Fenders the most. Over the years, the only one I've really hung on to has been this Deluxe Reverb. And over those years, it has gone from being a practice amp, like a really nice practice amp, to being my main amp for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gigs, to being on the injured reserve list because, face it, vintage amps are a drag to deal with because they have all kinds of maintenance issues and a lot of upkeep, to almost being sold and replaced, to being completely gutted and rebuilt. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is the amp is practically brand new. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Shortly after I had the amp, the speaker just really sounded terrible. I went through a phase where it sounded okay and I didn't like it. It turned out there was some issue with the magnet, I guess, or I don't know, whatever. I was sold on putting a Celestion speaker in it. I put a Celestion greenback in it, and I really haven't looked back since. I really love putting a greenback in the Deluxe Reverb. So that's the first modification. And in the quarter century I've had the amp, maybe more, I don't know, I've probably put 2 or 3 Celestion greenbacks in it. These days I like to pair the amp with a Sir 1x12 cabinet with a Celestion Creamback, which is the speaker I use in my Sir Badger 30 for rock gigs. And the combination of the open combo with the greenback and then the higher wattage version of the Creamback, which is 65 watt speaker with a similar sound with a little bit more low end with the sealed cabinet. I really like that. That's a pretty big, pretty cool sound. We're not actually going to mic that and hear that today. I'm just not set up for it the way my recording stuff goes. But that's kind of the way I prefer to run it if possible, especially outdoors. Through much of the 2000s, it was kind of my main gigging amp. It was just practical to carry around, a 112 combo. With the greenback speaker, it was a little bit louder than with the stock speaker. And I liked it. It worked really well with pedals. It had enough headroom to play most of the gigs I played on. Even some gigs like this ridiculous outdoor corporate event that I played at a place, basically at a water park called Pharaoh's. The amp is this little tiny dot there. But, you know, any gig you play on these days, they're going to put a mic in front of it and run you through the PA. So it's definitely loud enough to power the stage and not so loud that you piss off the house people. I started having problems with it. It started getting crackly and having dropouts and all kinds of issues. And I would take it into different repair guys and get it fixed. And then sooner or later, I'd start having problems again. Nobody could really diagnose it. So in 2011 or so, I bought a Sir Badger 30. And that's kind of been my main rock and roll or gigging amp for the last decade or so. And it's actually... It's back there. I still use it on a regular basis. Depends on the kind of gig. But a couple years ago, I was talking to Kevin Nelson, who's kind of a famous amp guy here in Orange County. And he worked for Leo Fender in the 70s. And he worked for Guild and QSC. He's kind of a legendary guy around here who's done a lot of really high-profile gigs. You know, and he said, you know what? The thing to do with this is to gut it. Basically, there's no benefit to trying to keep it as stock as possible because it's been repaired so many times that there's very little original left in there. And what is just kind of worn out. Electronic components drift in their values over time. And from what I understand, when we think about point-to-point, we think about maybe turret board wiring. But apparently during this time period, Fender used these like fiber board kind of things that, from how it was explained to me, they could absorb the salt water, and then the salt water would evaporate and leave the salt deposits in there, and it could actually cause things to arc or to short between components. And he was thinking that some of the issues I was having was literally because the board itself was actually kind of causing those problems. So what we did was he took the amp and he gutted it. I'm going to show you a picture here. This is while he was working on it. He put a new turret board in it. All new components. We kept the power transformers, the potentiometers, and the tubes, which weren't all that old when I brought it to him. And he rebuilt it, and it sounds awesome. I really love this amp now. I use it quite a bit. I use it on most of my small gigs with blues, reggae, and calypso stuff. Lately, this year, if you've been hearing anything on the channel, it's been me putting a microphone in front of this amp here, and it's not so loud that it disturbs my neighbors, but it sounds really good even at a lower volume. I kind of quit using the Strymon Iridium because literally this just makes me a lot happier. So I'll put some pictures up of that. A few years ago, I did have the opportunity to buy another. I had a 1974 Deluxe Reverb. And while this one was unusable, the new one actually sounded awesome. It was super stock, had the original speaker. It was beautiful. I used it for a few years. Then the speaker started getting weird again. And it had a different kind of speaker in it. And I just stopped enjoying playing through that amp. I tried putting a greenback in it. Didn't really work for me. And then when this amp got rebuilt, I was like, you know what? I just don't need that amp anymore. So I put it back together. I sold it to a student in Pennsylvania, and he's very happy with it because he's basically got an almost no miles 1974 Deluxe Reverb. So he's super happy with it. It works great. Sounds really good. It just doesn't sound like the one that I had rebuilt by Kevin Nelson. So that's kind of the deal there. I guess one last thing that I'm going to talk about is that this amp likes certain pedals and not other ones. So I've got actually two pedal boards. I've got the ridiculous one that you guys see in most of my social media. That is the Boss ES8, and it's got a ton of overdrive pedals. And then I've got a smaller one that I've kind of been putting together quietly this year, which has some of the same pedals, and then it's got some different overdrives and some other things. And that's the one I'm going to be playing through today, literally. But all you're going to be hearing as far as pedals go is a J-Rocket Boing reverb. It's like a spring reverb kind of digital thing. The reverb in this amp is terrible. That's the one thing we didn't really fix or work on. And it just probably just needs a replacement tank. So I actually don't use the reverb built into the amp, which is kind of sad when you think about it. The tremolo is pretty good. I've got a pedal for it. I'm not actually going to do anything here in the video with that. But you guys have all heard of Fender tremolo before. As far as other things, there might be some El Capistan tape delay kind of sound going on. And then the pedals that I actually do use in this are going to be an Emerson M Drive for like a clean push. There'll be a J-Rocket Blue Note, which is going to be kind of a bluesier, not very gainy kind of overdrive lead sound. And then the most crunchy sound that you're going to hear is going to be a J-Rocket The Dude pedal. And I use that, the new bits of audio that we've got here for you guys, kind of like the last thing that you hear. This next little bit with the Telecaster, sonically it sounds really good. I'm not in love with the video quality. I tried something new. It didn't quite work out. But I think it gets the point across. So enjoy. I have a couple snippets here of me playing through the amp kind of unaccompanied with a few different guitars. The Stratocaster that you see in all of these videos is my 1979 Tokai Springy sound. It's got a Warmoth replacement neck on it, and the pickups are Seymour Duncan Antiquity 2, the Surf Rider pickups. I really love the sound of that guitar now. The Telecaster is a 2011 60th anniversary Fender Telecaster. It's pretty much like an American Standard Tele. I think it's got the Tex-Mex Telecaster pickups in it, whatever came with that guitar. I really like that guitar too. It's kind of a unique one considering it's just a production instrument. And then my 2004 Les Paul Standard, which the only thing that's not stock about that is that the neck pickup is a Seymour Duncan 59 and the bridge pickup is the stock Burstbucker Pro.